Welcome into Buckets, Action Network's NBA betting podcast presented by our guys at FanDuel. I am your host, Sean Little, with my guy, Joe Dellera. Joe, what's going on?
Yo, we're having a good time. Not as good as the Knicks last night, but we're having a good time otherwise. So we're surviving and we're ready for this two-game slate on Thursday.
Yeah, this is the Thursday edition of Best Bets on the Buckets pod. Yeah, like Joe just laid out, we only have two games on the NBA slate. Warriors at Magic, Nuggets in Oklahoma City to take on the Thunder. So we're going to break down both of those games, give you our best bets for what we're looking at for those two games on the slate, and then we'll get you guys out of here, get you guys to kick off the weekend early. Joe, give me your best bets, and then I'll jump into mine.
All right, so both of my best bets for today are from the Warriors Magic game, and I like the Warriors -8. I'll lay those 8 points, but I'm pivoting to the Magic for a prop, and I like Wendell Carter Jr. at over 9.5 rebounds. You can get that right around like even money or so. What about you, man?
I'm with Joe. I like the Warriors -8. This is a very interesting spot. They came down the stretch and collapsed against Miami a couple days ago. So we'll talk about it. Joe, kick it off. I know we're both on the same side, but it's probably a different cap.
Yeah.
Give me the Warriors -8 cap first.
All right, so part of this is honestly both teams have been pretty bad against the spread. So when we look at this, the Warriors are 2-6 against the spread, but the Magic, they're a dog, but they're still bad against the spread. They're 2-5-1 against the spread so far this season. And when I'm looking at two teams like this, and I'm taking that into consideration, I actually don't think that people are really capturing how bad the Magic are, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that Paolo's been awesome. And like that's great, but like they're not a good basketball team. And I think we can see that they're missing Cole Anthony. He had been hurt. So they don't really have the same type of guard play. They already were lacking depth at that position. And they're like Team Lank over there. And I think that honestly, they're a young team. They have a lot of, their defensive schemes aren't going to be as equipped to deal with this type of offense that the Warriors can run. So another part of this is obviously like the Warriors are a road team, but the distance and the difference in travel between Miami to Orlando is minimal. So they're kind of getting acclimated to the time zone, even though it's a West Coast to East Coast. It's pretty far amount of travel there for Golden State, but they're vets. They've had some time to acclimate themselves. They're in good weather, presumably, down in Florida, maybe getting some extra rest, like feeling loose. And I like this spot for Golden State. They still have one of the best lineups out there when they're running, Curry, Clay, Wiggins, or Poole, Draymond, etc. So I really like this team, and I think that they're like off-ball movement and their really, really advanced offense is going to be a little bit too much for the Orlando Magic in this spot. And, we've seen this line open. It opened at like a soft 7.5 at like the opening line on some, at some books. So we're seeing some movement already in this direction. And I wouldn't be surprised to see this close at like closer to -9.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in to my Warriors -8. I agree with a lot of the things you just laid out. I like this spot for the Warriors. I'm a big looking at the situational spots and then going and backing it up with numbers and analytics. And that's exactly what I did here with the Warriors. Let's talk about it for a second. They've lost 3 straight, 4 of 5. Going into that Miami game, they were feeling a little bit of a pressure to get a W. That's how I looked at it. That's how it looked like they were playing with a little bit of desperation and sometimes looking a little out of sorts on the offensive end as well. But they go into Miami. We know about Miami. They've had their struggles to start the year as well, but they looked really good through 3 quarters. At one point, we're up 10 points. We're up 8 points going into the fourth, and then essentially folded in the fourth quarter. They didn't score a bucket in the last 2:07 of regulation. So it's a couple different things, but they looked very solid. Probably one of their better stretches of this season, those first 3 quarters against the Heat. They folded down the stretch. So they shot 46% from the field. They had 18 threes. How did they lose that game? They had 20 turnovers. Between Poole, Clay, and Curry, I believe they had 18 of the 20 turnovers, somewhere around that number. So when the backcourt and your veteran guys are turning the ball over that much, it's going to be tough to get a W, especially when you're in a hostile environment like Miami. But
Yeah,
let's talk. Yeah, go ahead.
dude, I was saying I'm 100% there with you, and I actually think one of the things that was more interesting too is even when we look at it last season, the Warriors they split with the Magic, but the game that Curry played, they won by 30. So like, and Curry didn't play the other game, they lost like 94-90. So I mean, it's kind of one of those, it's like if Curry's gonna play, they got no answer for him. They have nobody that can contain him either.
Yeah, absolutely. That was my next point. The Magic just aren't going to be able to keep up on offense. They don't have the talent and they don't have the individual matchups across the board. This is a bad matchup for them with the Warriors. Like you said, I love Paolo Banchero as well. Like he's been extremely fun to watch, has been doing his thing, but the ball sticks in his hand just like it sticks in the rest of those guys' hands. Terrence Ross, the ball doesn't move. They don't move the rock at all as an offense. They're coming into the game. They're going to be 28th in the league in offensive scoring. They're only averaging 20 assists a game. That's 28th in the league. So they have no one that wants to dish. They don't have anybody on their team that's averaging 5 assists. So they're not moving the ball. The offense sticks. When you tune in and pick up your television remote, your controller, whatever you call it, depending on what part of the country you're in, maybe it's a clicker to some of you
Yo,
guys.
nah, nah.
Some of you guys might call it a clicker.
All right, Grandpa.
Yeah, exactly. You turn on the Magic to watch Banchero get pure buckets and do his thing on the wing, but that's not going to be a successful remedy on offense when you're playing the Golden State Warriors. So I like this spot for them. Their offense is brutal in the Magic. It was 14 turnovers, excuse me. Curry, Thompson, and Poole had 14 of the 20 turnovers in Miami. I don't think they come anywhere close to that number. Oh, and by the way, the Magic had 24 turnovers the other night against the Thunder. So if they're turning it over like that against the Thunder, I know Golden State has had their issues on defense to start the year, but this is one of those spots I think that they're gonna wake up, bounce back, and try to get a big W on the road in Orlando. I think this team is gonna look more like the squad that showed up for the first 3 quarters against Miami instead of that fourth quarter.
Yeah, 100%. And I think honestly, it's one of those things where we're looking at the Warriors and we look at their advanced metrics, and you have to like take a step back and be like, like it's not really it. And a lot of it's because they're running these weird rotations, like Kerr is doing, like he's trying to get his vets like a little bit less time at the beginning of the season. But coming off like a bad loss in Miami, like I could see Golden State really want to come out, like make a statement, see those stars really step up. And like you said, if the ball is going to stick with these guys' hands for the Magic, Draymond's going to just have an absolute field day.
Yeah.
So I love the spot. I love the spot for the Warriors here.
I agree. I think, and I need a bounce back spot. I had a couple tough L's last night. We had the Knicks completely collapse on me in the second. They scored 64 points in the first half. I had the team total over 14 and a half, or over 114 and a half. I'm like, I'm going to cruise. This is all good. They had like 65 points in the first half. Then they came out in the third. They came out in the third quarter and scored 10 points, probably their worst second half or third quarter in about 4 or 5 years. And then they scored 24 in the fourth. So it was all over after that. And then really quick, I'm on the under 218. So I get on with Matt and Jay Money. We're breaking down games, and I really like the under in Celtics Cavs. I take it the night before at 218 and a half. I like the under at 218 and a half.
Fair.
I wake up, it's at 223. And I'm like, there's just no way I capped it this poorly. Like the 5-point move, I just can't see it, right? Couple hours later, it comes down to 220, ends up closing at 219 and a half. So it came back down.
You're right.
I was right. I was on the right side initially. Maybe I was off like CLV by like a point or so. But then game goes to overtime and it's completely dust. So that's how that goes. So we need a win. I think the Warriors will get it done for us at -8. Talk to me about your Wendell Carter rebound prop.
All right, so I like this prop. Number one, like if you can get it at even money, that's great. Like we love not paying that juice. But part of why I like this is a big pace up game for Orlando. So there's going to be more opportunities for rebounds than he's typically going to be seeing in like an ordinary game, considering the Warriors are at the top of the league in pace. Additionally, the Warriors are actually 25th in the league in rebounding percentage, which I found like surprising initially. But it does make sense, when you really think about who they're running out there. They're not necessarily running out the biggest the biggest lineup. You know, you have some lineups with Looney, you have some stuff with Wiseman, who we're still trying to see some development from.
Yeah.
And Wendell Carter Jr. is like a certified rebound magnet. Like he crashes the boards. That's what he does. That's what he gets paid to do. He's only hit this in 4 of 8 games this season. But if we look back and include last season, he's actually hit this at 61% of the time. So I like this spot in this pace up game. And I think that at over 9.5, like I could totally see him getting there. And if you want to sprinkle a little double, get some like a little bit more plus money action when that's available, that's definitely a good way to do it. And you can always try to build it out yourself. Like we know he's not getting there with assists. So if you build it out like 10 points, 10 boards, like maybe you get a little bit better price than the double listed prop there. So that's why I like his over 9.5 boards in this matchup.
It'll be interesting to see how Kerr plays Wiseman because he's looked bad to start.
Yeah.
Let's keep it 100 all the way of being. Wiseman has not looked that great. Maybe some might say even unplayable to start the year here. But so we'll see how a team that needs to get a W that's lost 3 in a row, 4 or 5. Wiseman, this might be the time where he doesn't play too many minutes, and that might be a benefit to Wendell Carter as well.
Yeah. Wiseman
But
needs an epiphany, you know?
yeah, he's young,
Sorry.
man. He hasn't played a lot of ball. The wise man needs a little time to get it together, no question. So we'll see how that nets because it's a blessing for the league right now that he's not a stud because there was a time where it's like, man, these dudes
It's gonna be
come off a title, and now Wiseman's coming back, and it's like, man, they might be tougher than last year. Really quick, before we move off the Nuggets Thunder, what do you think the issue is with the Warriors right now? Because my buddy, close friend of mine, shout out my guy Big Nick the Quick, was going into the year was like, I don't see the motivation for the Warriors. Last year had a very specific motivation of we got to prove to everybody that we're still the Warriors. We could still get it done. Clay's back now. Here we go. We're about to go into full, we're going in, we're going all in on this year to prove to everyone that, hey, let me go get a Curry. Let me go get another ring without KD. What do you think the issue is so far with the Warriors?
Dude, I really think it's that the rotations that they're running are ridiculous. Like they're just trying to figure out what's going to stick. Because if you look at this, I always use cleaning the glass for data. The number one lineup with at least 100 possessions played is a Golden State Warriors lineup. It's Curry, Thompson, Wiggins, Draymond, and Looney. In 201 possessions, they are plus 29.3 points per 100. So like it's not those dudes. It's just they're just running these lineups to try to I think they're really trying to figure out who are the other 16 game guys. Yeah, like who are they on the roster? Because like you got these young guys, you got Kuminga, you got Moody, you have Wiseman, like you have DiVincenzo even. Like you're trying to figure out who are the people that can play meaningful minutes hopefully for you for the rest of the season, but in the playoffs. And then maybe that's how you decide, like, how do we address this at the trade deadline? How do we, like, who do we go out and get? Like, do we need a Jay Crowder or like, do we need a big? Like, what do we need here? Like, and I think that's actually what's going on with the Warriors. I don't know if you have any differing thoughts on that though.
No, I agree with you 100%. You got to fill out we know what we got up top. We got to fill out we got to figure out that second unit and who we're going to run and how that's going to all work out. And for the record, everybody needs a Jay Crowder. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, who doesn't need a Jay Crowder?
Everybody needs a Jay Crowder on the team. Shout out Bossman 99.
He's a savage.
Yeah, 100%. All right, let's move over to Nuggets at Thunder. Currently sits at Nuggets minus 6.5. Thunder, the total is 229. Nuggets right now 1-3 on the road, and the Thunder completely flipped right now, 3-1 at home. The Nuggets are another team that can't stop anything, man. 26th in defensive rating to start the league, but they are shooting it well. We know with Jokic and those guys running the squad and Michael Porter, they're going to shoot it well from the floor. 48% from the floor to start the year. Can the Nuggets stop the Shy Show? That's going to be the question here.
He's been crazy.
Yeah, he's been crazy. How do you feel about the matchup? I know we didn't have a play that we particularly liked, but let's break it down. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a tough spot because the Thunder have just been that team that everyone's like, oh, well, like they're tanking. And it's like, are they tanking? Like, I don't know. Like,
are you sure?
Yeah, like, are we really sure? I mean, they have their fellow long slender man with Chet, and they got Poku, but Chet obviously isn't playing this year. But like Shai's looked incredible, and he is not slowing down. Like, they moved his points prop down like a point yesterday, and I was a sucker that bet the under on that. And I was like, oh, like I was
You just
watching the
nibbled
game.
though. You just
Yeah,
nibbled. I saw it. Yeah.
I just nibbled. I was like, I don't know. Like, they got Giddy back, but it just does not matter. Like, the dude is on one right now. And, they keep setting his points prop. It's like 25 and a half, 26 and a half. And he is literally just going over it by
Yeah.
a lot, like
Let me
every
give
game.
you yeah, let me give you 5 games from SGA. 32 points, 6 boards, 5 assists. 28 points, 3 boards, 7 assists. 33 points, 5 boards, 8 assists. 24 points, 5 boards, 6 assists. Then the big one, 38, 6 boards, 9 assists. So yeah, he's been going completely nuts. It's actually really dope to see him come into his own.
Yeah.
And it's very clear whose team it is, what they want to do. Remember, there was a stretch to start the year where we were worried like he was gonna sit out.
Yeah.
It's like, is he gonna
Yeah.
play? They're really gonna fully tank.
And then you
SGA is
see
just gonna
this.
chill out, and then they're gonna come back a year later. So yeah, it's awesome to see him come in, and you can tell by watching him play, he really is like, okay, I belong. I
Yeah.
can
And there's
definitely
been
do it.
some movement on his like most improved player line. Like, it's got all the way down to like 16 to 1, 18 to 1 on some books. So like, it's weird to me because like I've always thought that he's that dude. It's just that like the Thunder wouldn't play him. And then now it's like, oh, like he is that dude. Like, he is really good. And we're seeing that in full effect. And like, I don't know how the Nuggets necessarily stop him. But at the same time, it's like, I don't know how the Thunder really stopped Denver's offense either.
Yeah.
And like the total on this game, it's not crazy high. We're looking at a total of 229, and it looks like it's moved down from an opener of like 229 and a half. I'm not really sure like how I feel about that specifically, but you're right. Neither team really is going to play defense. Like, I don't know how either team stops the other here, but the Denver lineup that's been incredible is really still that starting lineup. You have like with Murray, KCP, Porter Jr., Gordon, and Jokic has been awesome. They're plus 7.6 per 100 possessions. So that's a top lineup in the NBA right now. And I don't know how OKC really can contend with that if Denver's trying to win, but it's also like you got to cover a spread that's a full 2 possessions right now.
Yeah, it's a really interesting number as well. It shows how much respect we have for SGA that we're not even all over the Nuggets here, to be completely honest. He has been that locked in. We know about Jamal Murray. He's still trying to get everything back fully in 6 games. He's only averaging 14 points to kick off the campaign. We know about Michael Porter Jr. When he gets hot, he can get rolling. Jokic's numbers are down a touch, but the player efficiency rating is not still up there
Yeah.
at 29.17. So it's an interesting matchup for a 2 game slate. It's one of those games where you initially would write it off as like Nuggets are gonna get it,
Yeah.
right the ship, kind of get back on track on the road. But I think the number being 6 and not really moving whatsoever, at least here on Wednesday night, shows you that there is respect and love in the market for SGA and the Thunder.
Yeah, and I was looking for like an angle because I was like, well, I know that I really like this Denver opening lineup that they run, and Jokic plays like a significant amount of the first quarter. So like when I'm looking at some of these splits, and I'm like, I don't really like Denver's bench. That's the way like I like to try to take advantage of them. The Nuggets are 5-2 against the spread in the first quarter, but the Thunder are 4-2-1. So it's tough when you're looking at it like this. It's like, all right, well, that edge that I have for Denver, maybe it's like a little overstated in this matchup in against the Thunder. So it's like the OKC's performed very well against the spread, like obviously like throughout this season. And they're kind of that team that like nobody really, you don't want to bet on a bad team. And like Nuggets are supposed to be a good team. So it makes me very nervous considering that they're 6-1 against the spread. And I think that their one loss is at home. So against the spread. So it's interesting. I struggle with this game. Like
Yeah,
I would dabble with a money line parlay, maybe like a little bit of Nuggets and Warriors, but this is one of those like I really am struggling to pick a side, and like I don't really want to. It's just like the Nuggets should win,
yeah.
but I don't know if they cover that number.
Yeah, and to talk to your point about the first quarter, like right now, if you're even looking for any type of edge, right? Currently now they're on FanDuel. Nothing is released for the full first quarter, but I'm looking at like race to 10 is a juiced up Nuggets minus 145. Like that's tough. First
Yeah.
to 20 is like minus 160. So there's not a lot of player props out. I don't see any out currently for I don't see any currently out for the Nuggets or not, excuse me, the Thunder. Like I don't see
No,
any Lou
nothing for
Door
the
props,
Thunder.
nothing for the Thunder on that side. So they're keeping it close to chest. It's not a lot to pick through. But right
Yeah.
now, if I was looking at like if Joe had the 9 millimeter to me and I had to pick something, I'm probably looking at the over 229. Like we said, this
Yeah.
both squads aren't interested in playing defense, don't want to stop anyone. This could be a game where Porter, Murray could get going and finally have that statement game of the year where maybe they go for 25 plus and then we know Jokic is going to show up and produce. But it's still a tough number. 229 is nothing to sneeze at. That's a big
It's
total.
a big number.
The
Yeah.
big total for a team that relies for so much production in SGA being one player. It's a tough spot overall.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the way that you can play it is honestly with the Denver team total potentially, like whenever that pops, just based on like what the line is. I guess I'd expect it to be around like 118 or so. It's still just a high number. And
Yeah,
when we're looking at the pace of both of these teams, it's not like that significant where you're saying like, all right, like both of these teams are playing like super, super fast. Like the Thunder in the top 10, they're fifth right now on dunks and threes. The Nuggets are 13th. So it's not like we're not like looking at two, they're obviously in the top half, but it's not like we're looking at a game between, like the Lakers and the Warriors where it's like the top two teams in the league. Like this just
right.
it's I lean over, but I still have questions about like the bench depth of both these teams in terms of like what they can put up on offense. The only play that I do lean towards that I just saw pop now because I'd seen it earlier at 6.5 elsewhere, but I'm looking at the under on Michael Porter Jr. rebounds. It's at 7.5. It's kind of juiced up, but he just went over in back-to-back games against the Lakers and the Jazz. But prior to that, he had been under in 4 straight this to open the season against Utah, Golden State, Oklahoma City, and Portland. So it's a spot that I think the 7.5 is a little high, and it's just strictly based on the fact that he's coming off a 13 rebound game and a 9 rebound game. So maybe that's something I'll play with, but check out the app and maybe I'll load it in there.
Yeah, make sure you, of course, that's how you always know the official play will be on the app. Make sure you follow myself at Chicago Flow, Sean Little, and Joe Delara. He's on there, the Action Network award-winning app, man. Track the picks, keep on top of the plays, helps keep everything in order. Your bankroll, how the plays are stacking up on a year-to-year, week-to-week basis, and then that's how you evaluate and get better across the board. I think that's going to do it for me and Joe Delara. I'm your host, Sean Little. This is Buckets, Action Network's NBA betting podcast, Thursday edition. For Joe Delara, I am Sean Little. Make sure you subscribe. Tell the homies to tell a friend to subscribe. You already know what time it is. Appreciate our guys over at FanDuel. We'll see you guys tomorrow.